We are the God Culture, a group of independent researchers with no affiliation to any denomination, nor organization, nor YouTube channel, nor Facebook whatsoever. We read the Word and we test it as 1 Thessalonians 5:21 tells us, prove all things, hold fast that which is good. About 3 years ago, we posited a theory, which has become much stronger since, where we locate the rivers from Eden on the bottom of the ocean floor, which is really the most logical view we've ever seen, considering there was a worldwide flood. Someone claims to have disproven it, but did they? Well, we'll let you be the judge of that. But we've pretty much already proven they have not. Not even on one small minor point, for that matter. You can discern and know for yourself, though. One of the things that channel uses to supposedly prove their claims, and it's just a mention, they don't know this book. We understand that. That's very obvious. But it's the book of Jubilees, which they really aren't even reading, and we'll show you. Now, we've mapped out all of these directions that appear in the book of Jubilees, where Noah divided the entire earth. Yeah, all of it. The only thing not mentioned as a territory is Antarctica, and maybe that's because it's not really a territory. No one really wants it, largely. But anyway, Noah's division of the earth is so brilliant and so specific that really, when you map it out, and until you map it out, it's difficult to understand by just reading it many times, because you need to understand that the direction can't be going back over top of another relative's territory. For instance, if you're on Shem's territory, you go to his border, what it's calling his border, which cannot go into Ham's. And that border is defined by, I don't know, let's say the Gihon River. Yeah, it is. We'll show you. Then that means the Gihon River is not in Africa, because Shem can't go into Africa. See, these are the kinds of rationales that become very obvious when you look at these directions in a form where you're mapping them out. And that's why we can see many of these things. Maybe many can't. And it's understandable. Just reading these directions is not so easy. Not unless you really sit down with a map and go turn by turn by turn. The good news, we've already done that in parts 3 and 4 of this series. Now, we're also going to prove in this video, and we'll deal with this right away, this Hindu Kush in Iran. Some scholars try to go there. And once again, they're really not even looking at history. You have to ignore an awful lot to come to some of these conclusions. It's as if they posit a theory and they never even bother to test it to see if maybe it holds water at all. This doesn't, and you'll see. Really, they play the etymology game. Oh, there's a Kush, Hindu Kush. Kush is Kush. Oh, that must be the Kush from thousands of years earlier. What? In Shem's territory. Not even in Ham's territory, because Ham has Africa. What? Doesn't make any sense. And it never will. None of these will until you really sit down and you go through this basically the way that we have. We've broken it down very well. And once again, they're not even paying attention to history. Sounds like, yeah. Well, there is an area called Hindu Kush. That is true. But was it actually named for Cush, son of Ham? Especially all the way back over in the middle of Asia, in Shem's territory? Could that be named after Cush, son of Ham? Really? Let's see. First, when the Bible mentions the Gihon River, the river from Eden, parts into 4 rivers. The Gihon River is the second of the 4. It says it must surround, that's the word, surround, the whole land. And if it's the whole land, that word surround definitely means surrounds of Cush or Ethiopia, which is a very accurate interpretation we've already proven. Now, Cush was son of Ham, not son of Shem. And Shem inherited what is called Hindu Kush today. And he does not have a son named Cush, nor did he give this land to anyone named Cush, nor anyone from Ham. Cush is in Africa, in Ham's territory. But let's go deeper than that. What is the origin of this name, Hindu Kush? Some try to associate this with the rivers from Eden and push it into a theory where what they're doing is they're tying in the Tigris and the Euphrates, while the Hiddekel River, the third river, is named Hiddekel, according to the Hebrew and even the King James, who does not call it the Tigris, accurately so, though they do call the Tigris River the Tigris in the King James. They also call the Tigris River the river in the King James because it's the river of abomination, where Shinar, where the Tower of Babel was built, once stood. Now, with that understanding, also understand that that is what's driving some of these scholars. They're trying to fit things that don't possibly fit. We've already proven that there was no rain in early Genesis in the time that the rivers are being described, the 5-river system. And if there is no rain, therefore no river, which originates in precipitation, rain and snowmelt, could possibly be a river from Eden. And that disqualifies the Tigris, the modern Euphrates, which has the right name but is the wrong river. It has to fit the Bible. And then the Bible gives descriptions, like we just said for the Gihon, that it has to surround the whole land of Cush. And it's the same with 3 of the rivers. Very descriptive. Very descriptive. The Bible is brilliant. And to just take those descriptions and shove them to the side and forget about them and then start saying, oh no, the Gihon is it's a spring, not a river. No, it's a river. The Bible says it's a river. It says all of those are rivers. They're rivers, period. The end. Now, according to Encyclopedia Iranica from Iran, the name Hindu Kush is relatively young. Oops, that's a major problem. Because if this name is young, if it's a newer name, then what does it have in association as the origin of Cush, the son of Ham's name? It has none. Missing from the accounts of the early Arab geographers, so it wasn't even recorded in the early Arab geographer era, so which is still very long after the flood. This is a new name and isn't even associated with the name Cush, son of Ham, at all. It occurs for the first time in 1330 AD. Now, again, I know we do this and it oversimplifies, but we're doing this on purpose because the thinking of even scholars is so illogical on this, it's not even following this very basic train of thought, unfortunately. And it needs to be pointed out because we are all smart enough to see through this and to discern for ourselves. But can a mountain range, which is named in 1330 AD, can that name actually be the origin of Noah's grandson, born not long after the flood? Of course not. Ludicrous. Not even a remotely logical thought at all. And anyone calling themselves a scholar that tries to connect things in that way is really no scholar at all, because they're not applying scholarship. It's just a hack etymology game. And we see this far too often, and we've exposed it many times. So it says that the origin of the name Hindu Kush means Hindu killer. So the name Kush means killer. Now, again, not associated or affiliated with the Hebrew name Cush given to Ham's son. This word is not Hebrew. So you don't take a word from a different language and say, oh, well, that sounds the same, so it has to be the same. Of course not, especially when it's completely out of place in time. So it's talking about it got its name from where the Hindu slaves died crossing the pass on their way from India to Turkestan. Gee, did that happen in the time of the flood? No, that is a modern event in history in comparison. It was not a Hebrew history either. So now, how about from the days of Cush, son of Ham, grandson of Noah, just after the flood? Not even close. Let's read further. In contrast, the earliest known usage occurs on a map published about 1000 AD, still about the same time, many thousands of years after the flood and after Cush, son of Ham, existed and had his territory of Ethiopia, which is not Hindu Kush. Doesn't fit. The term Hindu Kush has been commonly seen to mean Hindu killer, again based on the story that we told you before, which again is a modern narrative in history. But two other meanings of the term include sparkling snows of India. Well, that's fine. That's a great name. Nothing wrong with that. But has no association with the Hebrew word Kush, which does not mean sparkling, snows, or India. None of the above. It means black. Now, how do you call yourself a scholar and not see the difference between black and snow? And mountains of India. Okay, mountains of India. Does Kush mean mountains, the Hebrew word? No. Does it mean India? Most definitely not, because that's in Sham's territory. In fact, Elam's specifically. So possibly a soft variant of Ku, or however you pronounce that. And what language is that in? It's in the Hindu language, possibly Sanskrit, I would imagine. But regardless, Ku means mountain. Kush does not. In Hebrew, Kush means black. So black, mountain, no, doesn't work. So what part of this is scholarly? We don't see any. In Arabic, Hindu Kush means mountains of India, so the word Kush is the word for mountain. Right, the Arabic word Kush means mountain. Arabic is also not Hebrew. So again, it doesn't fit. It doesn't work. The Arabic language did not exist in the days of Cush, the son of Ham. So there's really nothing here. There's no tie. They go on these rolls where they just talk in circles and they say absolutely nothing, and then come back and draw a conclusion based on never having actually proven anything in the first place. So they have no right to draw a conclusion. That has absolutely nothing to do with the Hebrew. They do this in scholarship often and never bother to dig just a little deeper, but we will. Encyclopedia of the World confirms the origins of the Hindu Kush are controversial as far as the name. Along with its origin in perishing of Indian slaves, we told you that story before, two other possibilities could exist. The term could be a corruption of Hindu ko, so they even spell ko differently in this definition than the other one. Okay, fine, but from pre-Islamic times, right, but not the days of Cush, the son of Ham, just after the flood, no. Where it separated Hindu population of southern Afghanistan from non-Hindu population in northern Afghanistan. The second possibility is that the name may be from the ancient Avestan language. Still nowhere near the flood and nowhere near the days of Cush, son of Ham, with the meaning water mountain. Does the Hebrew word Cush, black, mean water mountain? No. No one could attempt to stretch this as water mountain even. In trying to say, oh, well, the Gihon River was water and water mountain. There you go. No, that's not logic. So, Cush is not in Shem's territory, nor is the Gihon River. And what river surrounds the whole land of Hindu Kush? Well, look at it on a map. There's one on the screen, and you will see there is none. This word Kush in Hebrew, or Kuwsh, whichever way they wish to render it, is not the same, the Hebrew word, as this word in the Hindu languages. It's not the same. It does not have the same root. It just doesn't connect even remotely. And even if it did, it's in the wrong territory. There is no Gihon River there. Nothing whatsoever fits the Bible. So there is no moving the Gihon River into Central Asia, period. Here are the 5 rivers from Eden found on the bottom of the ocean floor. Again, watch Rivers from Eden, our full theory, which is very well supported, and the only such theory that actually matches the Bible, and it has never been proven wrong. Not one piece of it. Now, let's go into the book of Jubilees and see what it is saying about the Gihon River, because it locates it as well. And this is fascinating. We'll pick up in the middle of Shem's directions, and then we'll go into Ham's and pull out pieces of that. Now, we are not big on fragments, but we can't possibly lay out all of these directions again in this video, especially since we've already done so in full in parts 3 and 4 of this flood series. So take a look at that for full detail, and you will see we're not taking anything out of context. Jubilees 8:14. Let's start there. This is Shem's territory. It extends in a straight line till it reaches the west. Now, wait a second. We were just in India. Yes, it calls out India specifically because it is also a tongue, and it talks about that points to the south, etc., etc., etc. And you can very clear, it even uses names that are pretty ancient, but still you can find them as referring to India. So it's India. So we're in India, and then it extends in a straight line till it reaches the west. So where are we heading, direction-wise? To the west of India, okay? Now, the west of the tongue, which looks toward the south. Now, when you're heading west from India, what is the tongue that looks toward the south? It's going to give you further directions, so this is going to be very obvious. Well, that tongue is the Sinai Peninsula. Now, here's for further proof. Keep reading Jubilees. For this sea, now it's talking about the sea, the tongue is the land, this is the sea, is named the tongue of the Egyptian sea. Okay, the sea that surrounds the tongue of the Egyptian sea. That's the Red Sea as far as the water goes, and the Sinai Peninsula. So very easy to determine here. Now, where is this? This goes not into the Sinai Peninsula. That's not what this says. It reaches to the west of it, or it goes to the west to it. That's it. So it goes to the west, and it stops right there. Because the Sinai Peninsula belongs to Ham. It is in Egypt. It's considered part of Africa in terms of these directions. So it's not Shem's. It's Ham's. So Shem stops there. So what does that mean? What is the land next to that? It's Saudi Arabia. Now bear in mind, we were in India again. So that's where we are in these directions. Notice the waters which are included in these maps also count, because Noah, and even Shem later, they actually divide the water rights as well. Brilliant. Here's where the Gihon comes in, and this is incredible. Remember, we are in Saudi Arabia, right? In the directions, that's where we are. Now, it turns from here towards the south. Okay, stop. So south of Saudi Arabia. Is that Africa? No, actually it's not. It's the sea. See, it's the Indian Ocean. Now keep going. Towards the mouth of the Great Sea, the Indian Ocean, on the shore of its waters. See, the waters are defined in these directions as Shems. Shem has the Indian Ocean in that part, in that portion, but not the land. This does not say it goes into the land. Let's see. And it extends to the west. Okay, so we were in Saudi Arabia. We headed directly south, and now we're heading west some. Where are we heading to? Extends to the west to, which means it stops at Africa. Afra. So west to Africa. Gee, that's not in Africa, right? But to it and stops before reaching Africa. Ham gets all of Africa, and that's very clear in his mapping. Again, watch the entire mapping and you will see that. And there's no placing Shem inside of Ham's territory. You can't do that. And when people do that, they mess these directions up completely and they'll never understand them at all. Again, actually physically mapping them out is really the only way to understand these. And it extends till it reaches the waters of the river Gihon, which is where? It can't be inside of Africa. No, because Shem's territory, we just said, stops at Africa. He only has the waters, that's it, of the Indian Ocean to the border of Africa, and now it's going into further detail. It extends till it reaches the waters of the river Gihon. Why? Because the river Gihon surrounds Africa. If it's a border for Shem, and he does not enter Africa, then the Gihon is between Shem and Africa, meaning the Gihon River surrounds Africa. At least at that point, we'll deal with the other side in the next references. Let's keep going. And to the south of the waters of Gihon, so it's going to travel further south. We don't know exactly where that defining point is, that end point, but Shem has the Indian Ocean down the coast of Africa for a good ways. And this goes where? To the banks of this river. What river? The river Gihon. So, if it goes to the banks of the rivers Gihon, and it goes to basically the banks of Africa, then the Gihon River and Africa share the same banks. Now, this is a criticism we received by someone else from another channel. But here's what's really funny. What's it doing? It's defining the continental shelf of Africa as banks of the Gihon River. Just as in our Hiddekel video, we show you that the banks of the Hiddekel River are the continental shelf of Asia in the Persian Gulf, where the Hiddekel River is. Therefore, when Daniel says he stood next to, he actually doesn't say he stood in the banks of, but that's okay. He stood on the banks of Susa, Iran. Go watch that if you haven't seen it. And to the south of the waters of Gihon. So that part we covered. So, oh no, we're back to there. Okay, so, and to the south of the waters Gihon, to the banks of this river. Okay, so he travels the coast of Africa, but does not enter it. Shem gets the waters of that portion of the Indian Ocean and the Red Sea as well, but does not enter Africa. Not even the Sinai Peninsula, for that matter, which further proves Mount Sinai is not there. Sorry, Catholic Church. But in Saudi Arabia, right where the Bible places it, in the Exodus account, many times over, as it must be in Shem's territory, not Ham's, and I'll show you that as well. Does this make sense? Well, there are more directions which really nail this down and reaffirm this many times over. So let's go through a few of those. I'm going to jump ahead, though, because I want to define something. Yahuwah has 3 holy places on earth. Another passage in Jubilees says 4, but 2 are in the same place. So there's really still 3, essentially. So I'm going to show you that so we can understand the context of Mount Sinai, even the Garden of Eden, and Mount Zion. So let's nail this down. Just after Shem's territory, Noah rejoices because Shem is his favorite, and Shem received in his inheritance from Noah the holy places of Yahuwah in his territory. He specifies the Garden of Eden. Yes, it must be in Shem's territory. It cannot be in Ham's territory. And by the way, the very permanent Holy of Holies, not the temporary one that was in Israel for really a short time in history and is gone today. The real Holy of Holies, the permanent Holy of Holies of Yahuwah God is in the Garden of Eden. On Shem's eastern border, we'll show you, in the Philippines. Mount Sinai and Mount Zion also are in Shem's territory. None of these are in Ham's nor Japheth's territories, period. So trying to stretch either of them into those territories is already starting with a faulty foundation. Now, let's go back and keep reading Shem's directions. Now, where were we in these directions? We were on the coast, but not entering Africa on the Gihon River. And here we go. And it extended towards the east. Now wait, is Africa east of Africa? No. And we're in the Indian Ocean right now. So it's going a long way to the east. Later in the directions, we're not going to cover all of them, but you'll see this if you go to the mapping. You will actually find that it identifies that the Garden of Eden is east of India. So definitely, we're going a long ways east into the Far East here. So bear in mind, we drew a line starting in India, which is where we were in the directions when we started, to the tip of Saudi Arabia. Then we headed south from there. So we're south of India. We're south of Saudi Arabia. Now heading east through the Indian Ocean all the way to, well, the Indies would be the next territory. That's where the next land is. So, and then it says, till it reacheth the Garden of Eden. Dude, there it is. Wait, that's on Shem's eastern border of Asia. Could that be in Africa? No, absolutely not. Nonsense. From an African document, even. How about that? Or at least one preserved by Africa. Now, we are a long ways from Africa in these directions, according to Jubilees. Nowhere near it. Therefore, the Garden of Eden is nowhere near Africa. That's nonsense. Now, from there, right now in the directions, we're at the Garden of Eden, Shem's eastern border, all the way to the east. Now, it then says to the south thereof. Now, this is showing that the garden is just north of Shem's southern border, right there in the far east, to the south. And from the east of the whole land of Eden. Now, here's the funny thing about this, okay? This is talking about the east of the whole earth. The east of the earth is what? Well, history's always found it, it's always recorded it, and it's never been in question. Even the international date line is partially based on it, and that's a fictitious date line. It doesn't even, it's impertinent, really, when you think about it, though we use it every day. The Orient, the Far East, is the east of all of history. Always has been. Remember, these are Hebrew writers. Moses wrote in essentially the wilderness, right? So right there on the same parallel as Israel. The prophets wrote essentially in Israel. When they're writing about something that's east, it's not Israel. Duh. It's not Saudi Arabia. It's not Africa for sure. That's west. So none of those makes any sense. Then in Ham's directions a little later, it says Ham, and we're going to cover these, but I'm going to use this little piece now for clarification right here on this screen. It says Ham reaches to the right of the Garden of Eden. Now, right in directions means east. So his territory must include the Pacific Ocean, according to this. Now, we'll get there a little further. So the Garden of Eden is on Shem's eastern border, not in or anywhere near Africa. Oh yeah, and Moses, the African Hebrew, wrote this book of Jubilees, and it is actually Ethiopia in Africa who preserved it. Now, when I say Ethiopia, I'm talking about Abyssinia. Let's be clear, not all of Ethiopia, which we proved in the last video, is coast to coast all of Central Africa. And consider it as scripture, canon, and inspired all along. The Dead Sea Scroll community did as well, but the Ethiopian community always included it in its Bible. So, guys, this is not a European document, but an African one, and it is accurate. So let's look at Ham a little more so we can all understand the dynamic of these directions so they completely make sense in context. Again, these are available in full if you want the full context in parts 3 and 4 of this flood series. Now, admittedly, this portion, if someone was just reading this, would be very hard to truly understand without a map in front of you and without following these directions turn by turn as we do. So we'll show you on a map, and again, full mapping, parts 3 and 4. Here's how this happens. And there's no other way to interpret this really. If you are following all of these directions, you can't have Ham stepping all over Shem's border. He can't do that on the eastern side of Africa. He can't cross over that into Shem's territory. So he can't go that way, not in these directions. But watch this. And for Ham came forth the second portion beyond the Gihon. Now, where? I thought the Gihon is on Shem's eastern border of Africa, which Shem has, right? So how can Ham now cross that into what was just defined as Shem's territory? It doesn't work, right? But now here's the Gihon again, and Ham is to cross it. Into Shem's territory? No, he cannot. He is not heading east. What it's saying is that he is to head west over the Gihon River, which surrounds Africa, into the Atlantic Ocean this time, and to South America, and all the way around the southern hemisphere. Because, yes, Noah knew the whole earth. As his grandfather, Enoch, traveled the entire earth and even saw it from heaven and described it fully. Now let's pick up. Towards the south, to the right of the garden. See, the garden is on the eastern border of Shem's territory and with Ham. So Ham's on the right, the eastern side of it, further east, and Shem is on the western side of it. It is Shem's eastern border. So Ham receives the southern hemisphere around the world, which also matches history as who are the indigenous peoples in the southern hemisphere pretty much around the world, even in Australia and Indonesia. They are black, or Ham, burnt, or Kush, black, just as all pretty much of Ham's lands are initially. Now, once it meets the garden to the right of it, at Shem's border, it heads south, which we've drawn an arrow, just as Shem's directions do in tandem, as the garden is just north of Shem's southern border. So this makes perfect sense. These directions are actually tracking together perfectly. Brilliant. And it extends, check this out, towards the south, and it extends to all the mountains of fire. Okay, what did Noah do there? It extends to all the mountains of fire. Well, he's defining the southern border of Shem's Asian territory. And where are we? In the Far East. Did he not know that volcanoes are all over the earth? Really in all three suns territories? Actually, the U.S. is number 1 in volcanoes in total number, and Russia, I believe, number 2. This is a problem, right? Oh no. He is being brilliant here, and this has been preserved, especially in that portion of the world. See, what Noah did is pick a very perfect natural border for Shem's southern border, all the mountains of fire. It just so happens there is a group of 147 volcanoes, essentially in a string, forming a natural border, which Indonesia calls, in Javanese, Gunung Gunung Api, or, in English, the mountains of fire. They're right there. It's been right there. They still retain the name that Noah gave those mountains. Imagine that. And a perfect natural border. The northmost volcano in that chain is right on the border of Sabah, Malaysia, and Indonesia, splitting Borneo and into 2 different countries, which would make absolutely no sense in history unless you understood Noah is the one who divided it. Remember, Sabah used to be part of the Philippines in history. Now, it sets the eastern border with the easternmost volcano in Gunung Gunung Api, lining up with the Philippine Trench, essentially, which is the ancient Pisan River we've already covered, but we will cover that in more detail as well from Genesis 2. How about that? And the Garden of Eden is just north of this border, placing it in the Sulu Sea in the Philippines, which we locate very specifically in part 12a through E of Solomon's Gold series. And yes, we find the Garden of Eden, and we're finding it yet again right here. But this also proves our river from Eden theory is well supported by the book of Jubilees, as well as everything else, including science itself, real science. So the Gihon is most definitely surrounding the whole land of Ethiopia, as the whole land of Ethiopia is the continent of Africa, as it is the oceanic trenches in the bottom of the ocean floor, which are the only things that fit the book of Jubilees, that fit science, logic, and reason, really, when you really look at this. This division leaves no room for the Garden of Eden, nor the Gihon River, nor any of the rivers from Eden to be located within continental Africa. It cannot happen. Jubilees nails this down perfectly and actually helps to locate all of these rivers. It helped to locate the Hiddekel River, which we showed you. It helps to locate the Gihon, and it really nails down the Pisan River, which we'll get to in the next video. Now, the Gihon surrounds Africa, the whole continent, as it is on the bottom of the ocean floor, and none of the other rivers are within Africa. They cannot be. Also, the thinking that the Gihon Spring in Israel is in any way connected to the Gihon River is absolute nonsense. We had already proven that, but the reality is that's not logical thinking. It is not an actual theory. it is propaganda. Propaganda, in some hands, it leads to Zionism in Israel, and that is its purpose. And in other times, it's being used strictly as a way to espouse communist aims from another channel, it seems. Now, the thinking further, that then that spring is somehow connected in a way that is unprovable and non-existent, of course, to geysers in Ethiopia, is just plain stupid. Let's call it what it is. That is not logical. That's not a theory. Now, the Gihon must surround Africa, and it cannot be inside of it. There is not one coherent claim coming from even the Black Hebrew Movement channels. We have one that we used to watch, in fact, and we no longer do because they just keep harping over and over and over and over. And they even use the Book of Jubilees. We just showed you the Book of Jubilees. The Book of Jubilees says Shem is not in Africa. Therefore, nothing that is Shem's, such as the Garden of Eden, can be in Africa, nor can Ophir, Sheba, or Tarshish, not the ones of the Bible that are talking about where Solomon went. There is a Sheba in Africa, but there's another Sheba from the brother of Ophir. And they miss that, they ignore it, even the rabbis, even the commentaries or the documentaries that you'll see on the History Channel, all of them just ignore Joktan's sons, Ophir and Sheba, completely. Now, wait till you see how Genesis 2 also nails down the Pison River very specifically, and again, with the aid of the Book of Jubilees, will reaffirm it wholly. Thank you for watching our Flood series. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to click the bell. Share this video with others and check out our website at thegodculture.com. Always double check you are not unsubscribed somehow, as several have told us they have been. You can support us on Patreon if you feel led as well. Many had asked, so we set that up to accommodate, and because of our Patreon supporters, especially, we have been able to offer many conferences in the Philippines, and we continue with some great ones coming up, which you can get updates on our website at thegodculture.com. We also update them on our Facebook. And register on the website as well. Don't forget to like us on our new Facebook, The God Culture space original, and that is the only Facebook we have, as we update different things there from time to time as well, almost daily. One final note, YouTube and Facebook seem to wish to play games with our sites. No matter, many have said they are not being notified, or they've been unsubscribed, or been asked to unfriend on Facebook, can't view some of the posts on Facebook. Okay, whatever, guys. Therefore, we are compiling an email list in which we have already begun sending notifications ourselves just in case those systems fail. We'll become better and better at that over time. And we already have thousands on our list. Add your email to that list now. Email us at thegodculture@gmail.com. Because, folks, we aren't going anywhere. We're going to continue doing what we're doing. Thank you for all of your support in every way. And don't worry, none of these so-called giants are big enough to stop this momentum. Yahuwah bless all.